Hello everyone, my name is Kirti Rana. I am a chess player from India. Today I am trying to analyze one of the classical game between Anatoly Karpov and Alexei Shirov. Anatoly Karpov was the former world chess champion from the year 1975 to 1985. He is very well known for his positional style and he is very good at converting a small positional advantage into a winning advantage. On other side, Alexei Shirov is playing, and Alexei Shirov was a Latvian grandmaster, and he is well known for his aggressive and unorthodox style. He is very good at tactics, and he is able to create tactics from the position where others find no tactics. So it's a clash of styles. So let us move into the game. So in this game, Anatoly Karpov is playing from the white side and Shirov is playing from the black side. So we straight away reach up to this position and this is the move number 15th. So we will discuss this position from this point onwards. So if you ask me about the opening, this is a Queen's Gambit Miran variation. From that opening they transformed into this position. So let us start our discussion from this point. In this position, this is white to play, and let us consider the situation. Here in this position, black's objective is he wants to play c5 and free his bishop along this long diagonal. Play c5 and then open the diagonal for the bishop. Once he plays the pawn to c5, all his pieces are going to be freed because already he has finished the development of knights, bishop, queen and rook. So once he manages to play c5, then black will be unleashing his pieces onto the white's king, or in general black is going to have a very comfortable play. Now in this position, it is necessary for white to prevent this pawn move to c5, which is a freeing move for black. So here Karpov finds a very interesting move that prevents this pawn coming to c5. So here he plays a4. So he is trying to constrict the black's activity, minimize the black's activity. So after a4, it is not possible for black to play c5 because white takes a into b5, a into b5 followed by knight into b5. Straight away winning a pawn and a piece. So it is not possible for black to push this pawn straight away. But here there is another possibility. Black can think about pushing the pawn to b4, but this will create a new weakness in the black's position. White can straight away bring his knight back to b1, and if black plays c5, then knight d2. Now the point of this idea is white is going to get an outpost on the c4, either for the knight or for the bishop. This square is going to become an outpost. And not only that, in the long run, this pawn on c5 is going to become a target. This is going to become a backward pawn, and this is going to become a target for white's rooks or other minor pieces. So b4 is not a suggestible positionally here. So here Shirov plays a natural developmental move, rook a d8, and here Karpov plays another good move, knight g5. So here what is he doing? See, on one hand with the move a4, he minimized the black's activity, and with the move knight g5, he is increasing the activity of his pieces. So here the point of knight g5 is he wants to conquer this e4 square with his knight. So he is trying to centralize his knights in the most appropriate way. So black plays queen e7 and knight e4. Knight takes knight and knight takes knight. So the knight is looking on the bishop on d6, and here Shirov plays bishop b4. The point of bishop b4 is he would like to exchange these rooks along the d file and release some stress from the position, release some tension from the position. However, one could ask, why not move the bishop back to c7? Because the bishop is doing quite well on this long diagonal. So why to disturb this bishop from this long diagonal? Here comes a small positional provocation from white, which is going to create weakness in the black structure. White can play bishop to a3 and hit the black queen, and if black plays b4, this bishop simply returns back, and this creates a long-term weakness for the black. This pawn is going to become a weakness, and white eventually conquers this c4 square for his bishop, and both bishops are going to be trained against the black king. So that's a provocative idea. So that's why Shirov avoided that one and played bishop b4 and kept his control over the f8 a3 diagonal. And here Karpov just brings back this knight. Another good move from Karpov. The point of this move is now this knight wants to go to f5 and hit the black queen and also eye upon this pawn. Notice here this bishop from this b2 square is looking at the pawn on g7 like a sniper already. So in this position Shirov plays f6. Basically the point of this move is he's trying to strengthen his king side, and he's trying to blunt this dark colored bishop which is eyeing at the king. And one could ask why not g6 here? Because it is obvious that the knight is trying to come onto the f5 square. So why not prevent this knight move with g6? But if you play g6, this creates a new set of weaknesses. Now you see the bishop is straight away controlling this long diagonal, and there is no counterpart to this. If the black bishop, which is located on b4, had been placed on f8, then it is possible to play because the bishop would come to g7 and counter the white bishop. But here unfortunately it takes ages for this bishop to reach there. So after g6, white could go for immediate attack with knight e4 with the threat of f4. So this is going to be quite unpleasant. f5, f4, takes, knight g4, and pawn takes, queen takes, and this is going to be a favorable endgame for white. So the rook is attacking here and also eyeing upon the black king here. Let's say rook e7, rook d8 check, and rook h8. So this is going to be complex position for black to play. That's why Shirov in the position after the move knight e4, he did not play g6 and instead he played f6. And here Karpov plays another interesting positional move, that is bishop into e5. But why did he give up this bishop? See, the point here is after f6, it seems like the black's light squares are slowly becoming weaker, because the black's light colored bishop is stuck on the b7 square, and it is not able to come into the game because this freeing move c5 is not immediately available. On the other hand, once he pushed the pawn to f6, the square on f5 has become available for the knight, and the control for the white along this light colored diagonal has become clear. Now he wants to increase the white's power along this diagonal. So one of the problem here is this knight is well placed. This is perhaps the best piece in the black's position and controlling these squares around the white. So Karpov wants to get rid of this best piece of the black, and after queen takes e5, he keeps the bishop on d3. Now he trained both his queen and bishop, so he is making a battery of bishop and queen along the b1 to h7 diagonal, and he is trying to claim this diagonal. So here comes a tough movement for black. In this position, Shirov played a very natural looking move h6. But in the analysis it has been suggested that it would have been better if he had played g6. But it is very difficult to advise this move because this is going to lead into a very complex endgame straight away. Bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, and king h8. And here white can play queen h6 check, king g8, and knight h5. Suddenly this knight enters into the attack with the queen g7 threat, that is a checkmating threat. Not only queen g7 check, but also here white is threatening knight into f6 check. So several threats are suddenly unleashed onto the black's position. So black plays f5 so that the queen will cover this square. But white can play knight f6 and he can take the rook there. And after this, after several exchanges, this is going to lead into a very complex endgame. If the queens are off from the board and if the rooks are exchanged, this is a very complex endgame for black. In this position, white is already having a rook plus 3 pawns against 2 bishops, and white is also having a connected passed pawns. Now these are big challenge for black, but the point here is white cannot underestimate the strength of this c pawn. Now there is no blockade against this c pawn, so the pawn can be pushed quite freely in this position. But it is very hard to play this kind of endgame and to calculate all the way up to this point. So in this position, Shirov played a more natural looking move, h6. But problem after this move is, this is leading to the permanent weakening of the diagonal. The queen, bishop along with the knight, it's going to become a kind of permanent weakness for black. So bishop g6, so he conquers the g6 square. Bishop occupies the hole in the black's position, and rook f8 and knight f5. So you can notice suddenly these two pieces have become extremely active and hitting several pieces in the black's territory. So black plays c5 ultimately, and he is trying to free his bishop along this diagonal. But this also has a downside. This will lead to opening of the a file for the white rook and physical occupation of the rook along the 7th rank. Rook can come to a7, and this is going to be another unpleasant compromise that black have to make. Anyway, here a takes b5, pawn takes, and rook a7. Now notice that all the white pieces are active. Rook is looking at the black's pawn here. Bishop, bishop, knight, queen, rook. Almost all the white pieces are actively involved in the attack. And most important thing is white king is completely safe. There is no weakness around the white king. So black plays queen c7 because the rook is threatening the bishop. So black plays queen c7 to defend that. And here white plays knight h4. So this is going to make the way for the white's queen. So black plays rook into d1, queen into d1. And here Shirov plays rook a8 and offers the exchange of the rooks here. So he's hoping that if Karpov exchanges the rooks, then he would have double bishop advantage and he can solidify the position. But here again, Karpov finds a very interesting and strong and active move, that is queen to g4. So what is the point of this move? If black takes rook into a7, then queen goes to e6 and checks the king, and after queen e6 check, if king goes to h8 or f8, in either case queen e8 check, and that is mate. Now you can see the role played by this bishop. It is limiting the black king's mobility here. So here he plays queen c6 and got this square, and same time he prepares a counter attack along this diagonal by making a battery of bishop and queen. However, here Karpov plays another brilliant move, that is rook into b7. So the point of this is he's deflecting the black queen. The black queen should take the rook, and this gives the way for white queen to enter into the black's territory. But before that, Karpov plays queen e6 check and king h8, and here he plays bishop to e4. So after bishop e4, this is a nice skewer against the black, but of course black can definitely get out of this. Let us say if he plays rook a1 check, king h2, queen is still threatened by the bishop. So once the queen goes to b8 and gives check, white can play f4. So after f4, the white's attack is very, very dangerous, and black has no proper defense against the white's attack. Let us say black tries to defend the position by bringing the rook back, but this doesn't really help black, because knight g6 check, and once the king comes to h7, white has got knight e7 check, and after king h8, notice here the knight is limiting the king's mobility, so white can simply play queen f5, and this battery of queen and bishop will finish the black's position. So there is no appropriate defense against that unless he gives up the queen. So let's say rook takes e7 and queen to h7, and that is checkmate. So in this game you can see Karpov has utilized the small advantages that are available, and with his positional style he improved his position and finally blew up the black's position with amazing tactics. So if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.